So usually we start everyone off with some sort of like a discovery call, a get to know you process that lasts, usually one or two calls. And then we encourage people to commit to something for 6 to 12 months. And it's usually a monthly call that involves some homework in between for them to be doing. Just depends on what it is they're meeting with me about. If there is an assessment tool out there that we can use for the reason why we're meeting together, then we'll use that as well. So like with cultural intelligence or...
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Rexhen, and today's guest is Drew Anderson, an executive coach, leadership consultant, part-time coach at Second Chair Solutions, where he helps leaders grow with purpose through emotional intelligence, cultural awareness, and spiritual clarity. With a rich background in HR, coaching, and nonprofit leadership, Drew supports individuals and teams navigate change, burnout, organizational growth by helping them align their inner values with their outer action. He's also a published author, spiritual director, and the foundation leader at Coffee Regional Medical Center, combining deep compassion with practical tools for personal and professional transformation. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Drew.
It's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, Drew. It's a pleasure for us to have you on. So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to your beginnings as a coach, what inspired you to become a coach? What sparked this?
And I think it really began with me through sports. I played sports a lot as a young kid and up to my college years. And you have coaches as a sports player who are pushing you and kind of wanting you to become the best version of yourself. Obviously, to win, there's a game that's in hand that you're trying to win, but they're really pushing you. And as I got into my adult years and was looking at my career, life goals, all that kind of thing, I realized I needed someone that could do the same thing for me in my career and with my life goals that had been done previously for me through sports. That I just needed someone that would be on my side. They'd be out for my best interests, but they'd be pushing me. They'd be setting goals. They would help me have clarity in where I'm trying to get. They would help me see things that maybe I couldn't see yet, but they can, because they're helping look at the bigger picture, all those sorts of things. And so I think that's really what inspired me, that, hey, this is something I need for myself. This is something others need for themselves, even if they don't realize it all the time. They need someone who can come alongside them and coach them, and in just different aspects of their life. And so that really inspired me to kind of take a step into doing this myself, being a coach myself.
And so when thinking of like the time, obviously you're doing right now part-time, when you're working with the clients and coaching them and going through your coaching journey, which part of it do you find the most rewarding since you started doing this?
Yeah, I think there's always a moment when you're working with a client, whether it's in executive coaching or you're doing cultural or emotional intelligence or even in spiritual direction with someone. There's this moment where they gain a certain level of peace about whatever they're working towards. That there's this sense that they're at peace with the journey that they're on. And it doesn't mean that they're not still driven to achieve whatever it is. Like, it's not a giving up or an apathy. It's a deep sense of peace that they have about what's ahead of them. And I think that moment when you're working with someone, when you see that and they start to display that, and then the way your conversations even go change because they tend to have a certain bit of confidence that comes with that. That's different than like just a fake confidence, a fake it till you make it confidence. It's a genuine confidence of what's in front of them. I think that moment is always my favorite moment. It comes at different times for different people. Sometimes it can come as early as the second or third session with someone, but for many people it takes a while, 6-7 sessions a year, to where they finally grow fully confident of what's next.
And who do you typically at the business that you're working on right now as part-time, and specifically at second chair solutions. When it comes to the people that you work with, how would you describe that profile, the ideal client profile that you cover on second chair solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with clients about different topics. So I've had people come to me for themselves or for their organization when they're wanting to grow in their cultural awareness, cultural intelligence, conflict resolution. I've worked with clients through conflict situations. And then in more general senses, I've done coaching with small business leaders, people who are trying to start nonprofits, because I have a lot of background in the nonprofit leadership world. And then I also meet with people for spiritual direction, which has some similarities to coaching, but it's kind of helping people navigate their own relationship with religion in general sometimes, but usually specifically within the realm of Christianity, their own religious relationship with God and such. There's kind of a variety of people that come to me for different reasons that I make myself available to.
And so when you think about the transformation that they go through, how is the program broken down? Is there a certain program that they go through of a certain length? How is the engagement like?
So usually we start everyone off with some sort of like a discovery call, a get to know you process that lasts, usually 1 or 2 calls. And then we encourage people to commit to something for 6 to 12 months. And it's usually a monthly call that involves some homework in between for them to be doing. Just depends on what it is they're meeting with me about. If there is an assessment tool out there that we can use for the reason why we're meeting together, then we'll use that as well. So like with cultural intelligence or emotional intelligence, there are some assessment tools that they can take, and then we'll go through those assessments together. But really, the main goal is for them to commit to either 6 to 12 months of meeting regularly once a month, reviewing where they're at, helping them look at what their goals are for the next month, working through where their points of conflict are, what their opportunities are. And then I typically resource them from there. If I can tell that there's a specific need that they have, maybe a book would help them out. Mm-hmm. Maybe another person could help them through a specific stage of their growth, then I connect them with that resource.
And marketing wise, where are you guys right now finding the clients? Is there a certain marketing channel that is working best for you?
Yeah. So we don't do a ton of marketing. We really rely a lot on word of mouth, and then our website will end up getting people to us. But it's usually people we've worked with recommend us to someone else, or like with this opportunity, we end up in conversations on a podcast or at a conference where we're being asked to speak, and we just kind of throw it out there that this coaching business is also something we do. And so then they end up connected to Second Chair and either connected with the coach that they met initially, or we can help connect them to someone else, because they may come wanting a specific reason for their coaching. And if there's someone else better equipped within Second Chair to help them with that, we'll pass them off to that coach instead.
Cool. So it's mostly word of mouth. And so there's no other effort like LinkedIn or anything like that?
No, we don't really do much of an effort beyond that. Most of our coaches are part-time. There's 1 or 2 that have been full-time for different stints of their life. I was full-time for a couple years, but most of us have found that part-time is kind of what we're looking for, is to coach on the side of doing a full-time job that's also living out some of the principles that we coach people on. Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So right now, from your perspective, when thinking of the coaches that are doing it full-time, have it as a business, what advice would you give to these coaches when they're looking to scale their impact?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to make a coaching business where you're the only coach, scalability is going to be difficult, right? And so I'm a huge fan of teams. And so even though our Second Chair Solutions coaching business is made up of a team of part-time coaches, the team growth of it has been huge. It's been huge for bringing in clients and bringing in interest, but it's also been big because we've been able to encourage one another, help each other out as needed. Or as I mentioned before, if one of us is not the best coach for someone, we're able to hand that person off to someone who we think can actually help them achieve their goals. And so for me, the biggest piece of scalability is building a solid team. So even if it's just a team of a couple people, 2 or 3 others, you still build that team out. And I do find that if someone's doing it full time, there are probably people who are interested in getting into it, but are nervous about jumping into it full time. And so their easiest way of getting new team members may be to bring someone on part time, see how they do with 1 or 2 clients, and then allow them to grow their clientele from there. So personally, from what I've seen from both our growth in second chair and from when I've watched others, the piece about building a solid team is really key to scalability.
So you also mentioned earlier that this was also something you were trying to do initially, right? You were trying
Yes.
to build it as a business.
Yes.
Where did you find some challenges with doing that?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge was converting people from a place of interest. They had some sort of interest in coaching. They could somewhere see the value in it to actually getting them to sign up for a 6-month or 12-month contract with us as a client. That was definitely the pain point for most people, was actually signing on the dotted line to do it. And I think some of it is a lot of people are brought up in our culture to be very hyper independent. And so they feel like whatever it is in front of them, they can navigate on their own, or they can navigate just based on the advice of like friends or coworkers. And they just have never experienced what it's like to really have a dedicated coach helping them out. And so we found it difficult to convert people to that. I think what I've seen from what others have done, what we could have done better at that time that we didn't, I just didn't know about at that time, were things like offering courses, some short courses to help people do that. Maybe doing some more like group calls where you can get people onto like a one or 2-time group call and they start to see the benefit of it there, and then converting it into a longer term coaching relationship. If we had done some of that at the time, it probably would have helped grow things.
Interesting. So it seems like what was missing is kind of like a warm up, either like funnel where they're interested, but they need to build some trust over time and actually for them to invest the money. So it could be like a workshop, getting them to actually experience it firsthand, what that coaching is. Maybe like a free coaching call would have also been an option. Interesting, because what I'm seeing is that it is a challenge also for other coaches, but generally is they offer that free coaching call or they offer that experience. And then if people decide not to work with them, still they get a free session. If they decide to work, then yeah, get ready for that transformation. So yeah, that seems like a valid challenge over there. So thanks so much for sharing that.
Of course.
Cool. So I feel like when it comes to the content I want to cover, I feel like that we did cover most of it. But let me know if there's anything, just a note for the editor. We don't have any other questions to go over, but yeah, let me know if there's anything that you would like for me to cover for you. Any question you want me to ask you, anything you'd like me to promote you on or something like that.
Yeah, I guess you could ask about, what was I going to say? I guess you could ask me about the challenges of being a coach. I think that might be good for people to hear, just like what it's like as a coach, the challenges we face as coaches. And then it wouldn't hurt, I guess, to put back out there about my books that I've written. So I haven't done that in a couple of years. So it may not hurt for me to mention that I've written a couple books and what they're about.
Cool. So how do we want to connect the books? So we're going to talk about the challenges and how we want to connect the conversation. Are you going to connect it naturally while you answer?
I can, because they really are resources for like some of the spiritual direction that I do. So I can say, as a part of the coaching business, one of the pain points was getting people to kind of be a part of it. And I realized I could write these kind of short books.
I'll let you handle that part. I'm just going to ask the question. So for the editor, yeah, let's figure out just like after the last question, which was what advice would you give to other coaches that want to scale their impact? We got the answer. Now we're trying to stitch another question to it. So the question is going to be, we're going to try and cover what are some of the challenges that Drew faces as a coach, or you want me to phrase it as any coach is facing, because you also get to know from working with others as well.
Yeah, you could do it as any coach. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for the editor, the question will start here. So another question that I was thinking of is when it comes to working as a coach or like being a coach, because you get to work with other coaches as well in this business, where do you see some of the most common challenges that coaches are now facing, including you or maybe your colleagues?
Yeah, I think a challenge that I face and other coaches that I talk to face is this feeling of like you think you know what's best for the person, but you can't quite get them to see it. It's like they've hit a wall, and you really want to figure out, how do you get them to take that next step? How do you get them to find the motivation that they need to do the task that they're not doing, or whatever it is? But you see it, you can identify it, but you can't quite get them to make the change or take the next step. And sometimes that can be difficult, because you can revert to wanting to like push them a little hard, or to bug them about it, or to do things that aren't going to be helpful. It's something that as a coach you kind of have to learn to live with, that you can't really force anyone to do anything in the coaching journey. They've got to be motivated to do it. And sometimes time is on your side, in the sense that sometimes it takes you just waiting and letting them figure it out, letting them get to the point where they realize, okay, I've got to focus now. I've got to take the next step. And I've seen some of the best breakthroughs for my clients when I've done that, when I've not pressed the issue, when I've not pushed it with them, even though I knew what they needed to do. I held back. I let them get to the point where they were ready to take that next step. And then they would come back to our next session and share how they had this breakthrough. And so I think that's a struggle for a lot of coaches, this kind of feeling of wanting to almost be overly involved and push them.
And so when you think about not being pushy, but how would you start that spark? Is there a certain question that you kind of like just weave it in, like a question to kind of like trigger them to think differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. Your question is good. So I typically try to get down below the layer of what's actually motivating them. Why are they wanting to do this thing? Because if you can dig deeper and get below that, if you can keep asking them kind of, okay, well, what's under that? What's the motivation under that? Then you can help them get back to the real reason why they even got into coaching, or the real reason why they're wanting to accomplish whatever the task is. And either they will find out that whatever it is not all that worthwhile because they weren't really motivated to do it, or they'll rediscover that motivation. And both of those things are good outcomes. If they have a task that they've got on their list as a goal and they're not really ever going to be motivated to do it, then it's not worth your time as a coach or their time trying to pretend like this is something that they want to do. Or if they do find the motivation, then they'll end up following through on what that goal is. And so I try to get to those kind of questions, try to get to like the heart questions and what they really care about in life. A lot of times it revolves around like family or kids or their own desire for success, right? It gets down to kind of like what's driving them and motivating them.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of like mostly how coaching kind of works. You have to trigger these thoughts that they're not seeing, because that a coach can see through either they like reading their emotions or their body language, or how they're even like their face changes when they're just sharing something that they might have like put a wall between, and you just like breaking those walls with like just like triggering questions and like kind of trying to dig into where the issue actually lies and tying that with a goal. So cool. You also mentioned that, actually I read also in your intro that you're a published author.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover some of these books too?
Yeah. So I've written a couple just self-published books. They're on Amazon, the easiest way to get them. And you can look for them under my name, Drew Anderson. But it's a series of books. They're really related to the spiritual direction I do, which is a part of the coaching profile that I have. So they're related about people's religious journeys in our cultural context, like in the United States, specifically where I live. And so I created these as really short, easy read resources, because what I discovered was people were wrestling with some questions around their identity and around how that relates to their religious experience and their experience in our country. And so I created these resources to help kind of spark some thought processes, spark the journey for them. And so, yeah, they're out there. They're easy to read resources, and people are free to check them out. They're just on Amazon. Usually can find them by just putting my name in the search bar. So
Thank you so much, Drew. And thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It was lovely having you on the show. For anyone who wants to reach out to you or connect with you, they can go into LinkedIn and just search Drew Anderson, or you can search Drew Anderson and add Second Chair Solutions. You'll be able to find his profile on LinkedIn. Is there any other way people could reach out to you if they needed to?
Yeah, if they wanted to go to the Second Chair Solutions website, we've got a contact me form on there. And so they can just do it right through the website.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, Drew. Thank you for coming to the show.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.